supreme comic book leader. Fight for justice and right. An advocate, not a terminator. With the awesome power of his mind, he speaks for the devil in red.
This is the Fan Without Fear Completist Retrospective. My name is Nick, the Fan Without Fear. Let's take a look at what's on our radar for today. Daredevil Yellow, issues 1, 2, and 3. Up to now, on this show, we focused on comic books from the 1960s. Books which were created during what is now known as the Silver Age of comics. Today, I want to look at 3 comic books from 2001, during a series which sought to retell Daredevil's classic origin using modern storytelling techniques, and a comic book style which is now common, known as decompression. This complete story was presented over 6 issues, but today I'd like to focus on the first 3. Daredevil Yellow by Jeph, Loeb and Sale is among my all-time favorite comic books. Striking a perfect balance between the original and the familiar, Loeb and Sale explore serious themes of loss and personal tragedy with an introspective hero, some gentle humor, and consistently beautiful visual art. In way of warning, this episode will contain an old spoiler from 1999. Comic book fans almost definitely already know about this, but the Netflix TV series has not even touched on this plot point at all. At any rate, spoilers! Sort of. That was your only warning. As I mentioned, these books were designed in a comic book style known as decompressed storytelling. Other comics we've already looked at were mostly from the mid-1960s, and obviously follow a traditional comic book style in terms of layout and presentation. 50 years ago, the goal was to tell a complete story within the confines of one issue. With the popularization of decompression storytelling techniques in the late 1990s and early 2000s, writers and artists could now expand the mood and atmosphere by presenting a single story spread out over 5, 6, or even 12 issues or more. For example, here's page number 13 of Daredevil number 1 by Stan Lee and Bill Everett. On one page, Battlin' Jack is proud to win the fight for his son. Shot, identified and declared dead by police and the coroner. Matt goes through loss and depression, then rallies to graduate with honors. Nelson and Murdoch is founded, Karen Page is hired, and Matt resolves to find his father's killer. That's all on one page of a traditional comic book. Next, let's look at a page from 2003's Daredevil Volume 2, number 45. This is from Part 5 of Low Life, an excellent 5-issue decompressed story by Brian Michael Bendis and Alex Malev. Criminal Sammy Silk is led off of a prison yard and into a dark, ominous hallway. In the only dialogue on the page, he's told, "Room B. It's obvious something is wrong. The art is dark, no one is talking, and Sammy looks pensive." What happens next? You'd have to turn the page. The layout of the decompressed format is often compared to cinema and film. For readers, the trade-off with decompressed stories versus traditional comics will always be the amount of time that it takes to collect, read, and complete one single story, as each installment is released monthly. Today's comic, the 6-part Daredevil Yellow, was the first of Marvel's color books. After Yellow, the creative team of writer Jeph Loeb and artist Sale would go on to create Spider-Man Blue and Hulk Gray. Years later, there was even supposed to be a Captain America White, but after a number 0 preview issue, it went the way of Kevin Smith's Daredevil the Target and was not completed. Jeph Loeb and Sale had previously collaborated on a number of titles for DC Comics, including Superman for All Seasons and Batman The Long Halloween, which also focused on earlier days in the iconic heroes' careers. Sale is best known for his collaborative work with Mr. Loeb, and the Marvel color books in particular, which is ironic because the artist is literally colorblind. Jeph Loeb has had an extensive career in comics and television and became head of Marvel Television in 2010.
Daredevil Yellow was the only one of these titles I read during the original release, so I didn't know it at the time, but all three of the original color titles are centered on mourning dead girlfriends. Spider-Man Blue looks at portions of the Steve Ditko and John Romita Sr. eras of Amazing Spider-Man, with Peter Parker unironically feeling blue and making audio tapes to talk to Gwen Stacy, who after being gone for years has made countless reappearances as clones and in alternate universes. Hulk Gray raises questions of viewing the world in terms of black and white. In the frame of a special therapy session with Doc Samson, Bruce Banner pines for Betty Ross, who had not yet returned from the dead as Red She-Hulk. Perhaps the most subtle of all the color titles, Yellow refers not only to the original uniform, but also to being afraid. Daredevil Yellow deals with Matt Murdock experiencing the fear of facing the world without Karen Page. Now is not the time to discuss the circumstances of Karen's 1999 death, but I will say thus far she is fairly unique among major comic book characters for her ability to stay dead. Book 1 is the championship season. At Foggy Nelson's suggestion, Matt writes letters to his recently lost love, Karen Page. He writes that he is afraid because he is so deeply affected by her memory. The letters are an attempt to find himself again as the man without fear. Unsure where to start, Matt's thoughts return to the last days of his father's life. We are treated to an appropriately brief look at the young friendship of Matt and Foggy in the story of Matt's hero, Battlin' Jack Murdock, a boxer who refused to take a dive and is murdered by the Fixer and Slade. Matt believes in the justice system, but the DA is swiftly defeated in the case against Jack Murdock's murderers by money and influence. The law school graduate designs a costume from Battlin' Jack's old gear and resolves to fight for his father. Book 2, The Measure of a Man, deals with Daredevil's confrontation of Slade and the Fixer. Though based on events originally showcased in Daredevil number 1, we do see similarities to other Daredevil origin revisitings. Some of the artwork is reminiscent of fight choreography from Gene Colan's work in Daredevil number 53 by Stan Lee. And the fight with Slade actually takes place in Fogwell's gym instead of at the subway station. This was a change initially presented by Roger McKenzie and Frank Miller in Daredevil number 164. And in 1993's The Man Without Fear by Frank Miller and John Romita Jr. This issue ends with a comedic B-plot involving Foggy Nelson trying to hire a qualified secretary for the new law practice, closing with the introduction of young Karen Page. Book 3, Stepping into the Ring, opens with the famous visit of the Fantastic Four from Daredevil number 2, and perfectly characterizes the classic humor of the Silver Age FF, with the Thing bursting through the office window and demanding to know which shyster is Murdock. The pages of this issue explore the duality of Matt Murdock, the young attorney and friend, versus Matt Murdock, the crime fighter on a secret crusade. We even get an original scene of Matt visiting Slade in prison, seeking the Fixer's boss. Though very well executed, this scene bothers me, as I assume this is an allusion to the Kingpin. Speaking as a huge fan of Wilson Fisk, I do not enjoy the frequent attempts to force the Kingpin into Daredevil's origin story. Besides, lifelong Daredevil readers will tell you the Fixer's direct boss was Alexander Bont, who was retconned into the story during Daredevil Volume 2. Don't miss this issue, though. Matt tells a bunch of Helen Keller jokes while hustling a game of pool. I appreciate that may sound like it's in poor taste, but he was trying to make a point. For our cliffhanger, the law offices of Nelson and Murdock are briefly visited by a frightened and mysterious young woman. So mysterious, in fact, even I don't know who she's supposed to be. Her visit is soon followed up on by a bizarre and imposing man, a man we fans recognize as the Owl.
Join us next time and we'll finish looking at the last 3 issues of Daredevil Yellow. In the meantime, make sure you like and subscribe. And also look for us on Twitter at fwofcomics, Fan Without Fear Comics. Until next time, always live without fear.